12. Welcome back to Mira Business FM. This is DayBreak with me, Inzamam Rashid, taking you through till 2 o'clock this afternoon on a Friday. What a great feeling that really is. Look, on the DayBreak, we spoke quite a bit and quite extensively a few weeks ago about women in the workplace and the opportunities and the challenges and the need for greater support systems as women progress through different stages of their careers and their lives. And it's something that we touched upon with financial journalist from Citywire, Paramita Day, which was a really fascinating conversation. You can catch that on the Mira Business FM podcast. But today we're going to dive into a community that I think it's fair to say is probably going beyond the workplace, a bit of a global movement designed specifically for women over the age of 35 who are navigating those important and I've got to be very careful with my words, I think, midlife transitions, perhaps. It's called Sisterhood Collective, and it's what started as an idea in Australia, which has now grown to more than 30,000 members across multiple countries. And this month, I think I'm right in saying, it officially launches in Abu Dhabi. I'm just looking at the owner, who's nodding her head, and I'll introduce you to her next. At its heart, Sisterhood Collective is about connection, it's about clarity, and it's about confidence. Those 3 C's, helping women reset, reflect, and build momentum towards the lives they truly want without pressure or judgment. Behind it is a woman with a fascinating story herself, from serving in the Australian Army to building businesses in wellness, fitness, and media. And she's now on, probably fair to say, a bit of a mission to change the conversation around midlife. I'm delighted to say that we're joined by the founder of Sisterhood, Laurie Drummond. Laurie, welcome to Mira Business FM.
Thank you so much for having me. I think straight away you say I'm at that midlife age already. I'm like, oh my goodness, am I that old already?
Sorry, I don't mean to. But then I think about it as well, and I'm getting there as well, because I turned 30 this year.
You're a baby.
No, because of you. I mean, when you talk about you're working with them over the age of 35, and I'm like, well, that's only 5 years away. And so your midlife kind of does start there.
You know what? It's just such an important age. I feel like it's one of those transitional ages, right? Not only does your body change, right, but for women as well, we get to a point where we suddenly wake up and we go, is this it? You know, and that's when maybe you have these big relationship changes, or you think, I'm bored in my job. I want more. I want something different. And not to mention hormones, but let's not go there.
Well, look, this is going to be a fascinating conversation, because I think, for a man, I really want to be able to take this conversation over the next hour wearing women's shoes, which obviously sounds odd, but is the way that I think this conversation should be had, and trying to get an insight of what life is like for a woman in her 30s and beyond. When we, I kind of squirmed at the word midlife when I read it out, but it's got such a stigma attached to it. But you're doing a lot to try and tackle that.
Do you know what? I think it's an age where women start to feel empowered. It's when you start to have that moment of, I don't care what other people think. I'm happy with me right now, and I want whatever I want. So they go out and chase it. And I think you just have that extra bit of confidence, whereas when you're younger, you can be a little bit more fearful, particularly today where there is so much media around you. Like, everything is visible, and so are you. And so people can see everything, and I think that's what we're scared of, is opinions.
We'll come on to exactly what Sisterhood Collective does, but I want to talk a bit about you and your varied career that you've had. You're wearing army green today. Let's talk about from military to entrepreneurship. How has your life kind of gone from that working for the Australian Army to where you are today?
Do you know what? I'm glad I've got my own business, because if I had to put a CV together, it would be all over the shop, wouldn't it? It's really quite interesting. For me, I loved the Army. The reason I joined the Army was because my dad was in the Army. He was Special Forces. And of course, all little girls idolise their fathers. And I wanted to be just like him. So that's what I went off and did. And yes, I went into that military intelligence space, and I've had quite a few deployments overseas. But it was really fundamental in how it has shaped me today. Because as you can imagine, you're told what to do in everything, right? So that's even sometimes how you think. And, going into the army straight from school, I just did what I was told and I tried to do it as best as I could. Yep. The problem was, way back then, was that you really were pitted against other female. There was this massive competition against women that to be seen or to be heard or to be promoted, not only did you work harder, but you were competing against all the men who seemed to, I guess there's more of them as well, but they were seen and they looked after each other, but the women got left behind. And we didn't really band together. And that's what I wanted to change. And so for me, I left the army and I went over to Iraq and lived there for a few years. And one of the jobs I did was I was a threat advisor to the Australian ambassador. And the incumbent was Lyndall Sachs, female. And that was the moment for me where I realised she would call me and get my advice and go, what do you think? And she treated me like a human and she really valued my opinion and based, her next missions off what I said. And I felt really valued. And that was the pivotal moment for me where I realised women can, lean on each other and look after each other and you can rise together.
Talk us through your time in the army. Give us some examples where you found that. And obviously at the time there were probably a lot less women serving at the time, and so that kind of competition and that rivalry is probably a lot more than, say, if there were kind of equal number of men with women. But kind of give us some examples of what it was like serving in the army with other women who were just so fiercely competitive, I guess, and unsupportive.
It was hard. It was like school sometimes, where a couple would get together and kind of bully the other one or shun them down, or they'd turn to the men and then you'd get the men. It's like schoolyard stuff, which isn't fun, I don't think. We went through that for quite a few years. And so all you could do was be good at whatever the task was.
And when you got to this turning point of working in Iraq and working with the ambassador there, you've got a woman in the role there in a country like Iraq, and you don't need to go into the details of it, but a country where potentially it's difficult for a woman to be an ambassador, particularly at that time that you were working there, and then you a woman yourself advising her. That's two very strong, powerful women in a role like that. How was that a turning point for you at that time?
I think it was the fact that her coming there and me seeing someone in such a high leadership position made me realise that you can actually create the path that you want. You can do anything. And that's what she showed me. Of course it's challenging, because when you are talking to other key leaders, and that's what a lot of this was about, was talking to key leaders, or for me, trying to gain information by going into small villages and talking to the sheikhs. And they're sitting there thinking, there's a little blonde chick randomly amongst all these army people or security forces. They just wanted to talk, though. For me, I'm gaining information that I can use later. But for them, they just wanted a conversation and they wanted to engage. And really it was about showcasing their authority, their status. And I guess by reading people, if you make them feel a certain way, they'll like you and they'll keep the conversation going and you'll get what you want.
So you took, well, it's true. You took all these life experiences and you created Sisterhood Collective. How did that come about, and what was it about those experiences that you had of being in the army, working in kind of diplomacy and other roles that you've had as well, that made you then create this network?
Do you know what? So COVID happened, everyone goes into lockdown, and then for many, many people, the lockdown, people got lonely and unhealthy, right? And so at the end of it, I was craving people. And if you know anything about me, it's that my people matter. I love surrounding myself with, amazing humans. It's what fills my cup, right? So I was like, I miss all my friends. I want to bring them together. And because, as you know, I've got such a varied history. Yeah. My friends were from probably different circles and different seasons. But as you say, we were all over the age of 35. And so I brought them all together and I thought, we'll do a nice fancy lunch. And in that moment, I kind of just took a step back and looked at everybody, and everyone was engaging and they were having fun. And what I noticed was we all are going through different pain points or issues, and, in different seasons of our life. And I watch them feel safe amongst each other and start to share stories of, that may be of pain points. And then they would lean on each other and say, you know what, I've been there. Let me hook you up with this person or something. And they started to share. And that moment, so I ran a couple more of those, and it was that moment where I just stopped and looked and thought, ooh, these girls don't know each other, but they feel safe right now. I've created a safe space, and now they're sharing personal details, which is helping them advance in life. It's helping them, do, something they've been thinking about, but not necessarily taking action on, which is what I'm a big believer of, is taking action.
Why do you think it's, and again, please tell me from a kind of a woman's perspective, why is it taken for a space like that for women to be able to discuss those kind of issues, which clearly are quite common across, that kind of group of women? Why is it taken for you to put together like a dinner party or lunch or whatever it may be, and then create this space in order for women to have those conversations?
I don't know, maybe it's fear. Society puts these, specific ways of life, or puts you in a vortex and says you're a matrix and this is how you should live life, and this is how society sees it as a good life. And when you change the norm just a little bit, people think, oh, hang on a second, I can make a choice, I can make a change, I can intentionally choose to go against the grain. And I think because I am that person and I speak that, influences, so you might have an idea of going down one path, but then your friend's like, oh, come on, Loz, turn right, turn right. I'm like, oh, should I? And then you turn right. You're like, hang on a second, now I'm off my path. And that happens all the time, particularly with social media and any sort of leadership. And so, again, it comes back to surround yourself around people that inspire you or are maybe even heading in the same direction.
So then you grew the idea that was Sisterhood Collective, and you surrounded yourself with more than 30,000 members globally. How on earth did that happen?
Because I can talk. No. Well, I must say I've got Lauren with me as well. She's my absolute soul sister and best friend. She has been with me since the start when I had this idea. So do you want to come along and be with me for part of this ride? She's like, absolutely, I love it. And, it's transformed. Again, we've pivoted. We've been influenced off the track, come back on track. And I think how I've got so much reach over time was I was a business mentor for 7 years for a company called Two Brain Business. It's a Canadian business based in the US. And I had a lot of mentees all over the world. They were gym owners, but I literally had mentees in China, to Ireland, to Jordan, all over Australia and the US. And I think, you've suddenly got that network. You're starting to build a network, and people are, when you give good advice to people, they start to share that, and then your messages start to get out there. And I think that's how we started. And another thing is that I'm a good traveller, well-seasoned traveller, and when I connect with someone, I do stay in touch. And of course, that's global. And so it's just, being able, and I just think if you can just touch one person, then that person, it flows.
So you built up this network over time and a lot of members. What is it that then Sisterhood Collective actually does? What are you doing day to day to support these members, and what are they getting in return for being a part of the organisation?
Yeah, so we have this saying, which is, Sisterhood Collective, connect, grow, thrive. And we have a lot of little, terms that we use as well, but there's a couple of tiers to the sisterhood. And the very first one is connection. And it's not just about connecting with each other. We have the live events where you can connect in person, but from an online standpoint where we've got greater reach, it's connecting with yourself first. Right. Like, you can't make any decisions. You can't run a good business. You can't be the best version of yourself until you know who you are and what you want.
So I guess the question is physically what actually happens when you sign up to this group? Like, what is it that you do day in, day out to service all these people around the world?
Motivate people, inspire people, and educate. So I imagine you've read a good book, or you hear a podcast and someone says something and you're like, oh, that's such a good idea, I should do that. But 95% of people don't do it. And so I like to work with the 5% of people that do want to do it. They do want to take the action. They do want to make the change to improve their life. And that's what we're doing. We are creating these little motivations. We're giving, daily tips. really it's about mindset. So it's trying to create this positive mindset. Yes, we all get down in the dumps sometimes, but we need to move forward, you need to be in a growth or a positive mindset. So we put stuff out there that helps you wake up in the morning and start your day off that way, because we all know that when you have a positive mindset, you are going to be more productive in the day. And so really, the Sisterhood's all about helping women live their best life. So we want to give the tools, the resources. So we run live webinars, and we store them as well. And also I'm a big believer of goal setting. So I run those every quarter. We do quarter sprints. And that's really doing a self-assessment. So it's understanding where you are right now, where you want to go, and then how do I get there?
We'll talk a bit about your move to Abu Dhabi shortly. With something like that, how do you measure the success? How do you know that it's working? How do you know that the women around the world that have signed up are benefiting from what you're providing?
I think it's the feedback loop. So it's getting women say, oh, thank you so much. Or, in our free online group on Facebook, it's the Sisterhood Collective Lounge Room, we share the wins. It's all about sharing the wins. And I think so many women and people in general are so hard on themselves that sometimes even just, I speak to some mums, they've just had a baby. They haven't got out of their pajamas for the day. But you know what? This week, I actually had a shower before 9 a.m. I'm like, you know what? Well, well done you. And why can't you celebrate just that thing? Because it's going to make you feel good just for that little minute. There's a book called The Power of Moments where, you can just make one person, something might be special to you, but not necessarily to me, but I can see it's special to you. So why wouldn't I want to boost you in that moment and give you some, cred or some celebration? Because it's important to you.
And do you find that women who are then kind of a part of a network like this are changing that narrative that from what you had when you were in the army back in the day, where actually you are finding women are supportive of other women and, they kind of get a reward from that in return?
Yeah, I think the more stories that you share, the more you're influencing people to have the strength and the courage to take that step forward or pivot or change. I think the Sisterhood's really about intentional living, and we want women to choose and to let them know you can change anything. You can rewrite your story, and you can also change any sort of narrative that you want to.
Interesting. Laurie Drummond with us here. She's the founder of Sisterhood Collective on Mira Business FM. It's coming up to 12:30. We're going to get the news headlines, but Laurie, I want you to stick there because I'd really love to talk to you about why you've moved here to Abu Dhabi and what you kind of feel like the market is like out here and the kind of events that you could potentially be doing with the Sisterhood Collective out here, and also a bit about the business strategy as well, and understanding how that works in an organisation like this. News headlines coming up next here on Mira Business FM. This is DayBreak with me, Inzamam Rashid. Welcome back to Mira Business FM, DayBreak with me, Inzamam Rashid. It's just coming up to 12:34. We are with you for the next hour and 27 minutes or so. And in the studio right now with me is Laurie Drummond. She is the founder of Sisterhood Collective from Australia originally and now here in Abu Dhabi, but has driven to join us here in Dubai, of course, where we broadcast from today. We're talking about Sisterhood Collective, your incredible initiative that you founded. How many years ago now, Laurie?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. And now you are operating from Abu Dhabi. Tell us why that is and how that's going.
So the Sisterhood Collective is my baby. It's like a passion thing for me, is, helping other women rise and coming together. But I also have other businesses. So I'm a co-founder of Functional Fitness, and we have a few gyms in Abu Dhabi. I also lived here previously about 10 years ago when I was headhunted to do some work in one of the sectors over here. And so I kind of was familiar with the space. But I'm also into investing in startups as well, right? And someone once said to me, if you want to be a lion, you need to play with the lions. And the UAE is just that. This is it's a country that has opportunity everywhere. There's amazing people from everywhere. Everyone's ambitious. And there's just so much going on and it's exciting. So that's why we kind of came here as our next step. I feel like there's so many people we can connect with and help. And also for me personally, we're expanding our business quite fast and rapidly. So
Obviously, wherever you go, you carry your baby with you,
Yeah.
and so what makes Abu Dhabi the right fit for Sisterhood Collective at this stage?
yeah, do you know why? Because as you get older, I can't remember how this goes, but when you're younger, it's quite easy to make friends, right? You're at school, you're seeing people every day, or you're at university and you're seeing people every day. But then when you get mid-30s, you'll get there soon, love.
Soon.
But when you get there, you're not doing as much and you're not seeing as many people. So there's a lot of women and men that come here and it's lonely, you know, and so that's part of what Sisterhood Collective is about, is connecting and bringing people together, because it is lonely. Or sometimes you're rapidly advancing in your life and you're leaving behind your friendship groups. It's just a season. It's time to change. And so because this is such a fast-paced environment here, I feel like we can connect women that are feeling lonely, and it happens a lot faster.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. What is it about the UAE where have you kind of found a gap in the market where you often find maybe some women, particularly kind of 35 plus, who, because of the way the environment works here, and also it is a heavily male-dominated environment as well, maybe just feel a bit disillusioned, maybe feel a bit left out. And is that a gap that you've noticed in the region?
I have, and you know, there's a lot of women that have come over with their husbands, and they've left their jobs and their careers behind because there's no job necessarily for them here, and they have this idea to start a business, and that's the other element of what we do, and also what I do as a mentor, is help women start their own business. And there is a huge gap here for it because these women are ambitious. They've got time and they've got drive. And so I think there's a lot more people here. And I think also with AI at the moment, you know, there's a lot of automations going on. People they say people are losing their jobs, but also people are fearful of the future and, you know, what their career is going to look like. So they want to start their own business.
How important is it for you as a businesswoman yourself to help other women, particularly those who kind of move over here and have the ambitions to set up their business, for you to mentor them as you do and to support other women? At the end of the day, that's the kind of the crux of what Sisterhood Collective is. But for you as an individual, how important is that to do that?
Yeah, it's my everything, and it's why I have Project 5. The thing is, I can't do it for you. I can only guide you there and give you the resources, the tools, and obviously crack the whip to make sure that you know, stay on path and you keep going. Because running a business isn't easy. Setting up a business is even harder, you know, and even finding the clientele or the market for that, you know, space. It takes time and consistency. And, you know, a lot of people drop off at the moment it gets hard, or maybe I mentored one gentleman who was setting up his own business, and he said, he put a package together, you know, his service that he was going to offer, and he reached out to 3 people or companies, and he said, no one's biting. I said, you've put 3 posts out, you've done 3 marketing posts, and you've reached out to 3 people. I'm like, we've been in business for 2 years. Like, you have to, you know, go out 1,000 times to find that one little cherry. And once you get that cherry, you get momentum. And when you get momentum, you know, success starts to occur, opportunities. And I think
it snowballs,
it does snowball. And the other thing is, if you're too fearful, you're not going to see opportunity. It's literally going to be staring at you in the face, and you're looking past it.
Yeah.
So again, that's where it comes back to the sisterhood and our first layer, which is getting you into that positive mindset. Because when you have that, you will see everything around you.
On the Sisterhood Collective, how do you kind of plan to adapt the community to, I guess, the cultural and the professional landscape of the UAE? How are you kind of having to change what you have to offer to kind of meet demands here?
I think the only new thing we've done is add the in-person events, because I believe that connection and almost physical connection without touching each other is super important now, because everything is online and everything's automated, and we're losing that human side. So that's the part we've adapted, because I think that's the most important thing right now. But we need to stay authentic. And the sisterhood really, it's about raising other women. I think where we're going in the future, the point of it is to be a platform where we promote other women. I don't want to just be the face of it.
Yeah.
Neither does Lauren. We want all the other women to shine.
And how do you do that?
So I think, well, we've got something launching soon. I can't tell you just yet, so you'll have to get me back if you want to discuss
not a tease
that.
like that. That's no.
Do you like that one? Yes. When we launched that, and part of it, there's a couple of parts to it, but one part which I will tell you about is the online component, and it will be a directory as well. So it's a directory not only of locations, so what cities globally where people are, but also how they can enter the conversation. So maybe you're a PR guru, a sales and marketing person, you're a doctor, and you're maybe looking for a doctor as a speaker or something like that. But it's a way of connecting all these women, but allowing them to showcase. On top of that, we have an online portal, which is a learning portal where I want to showcase women. So where they'll put their masterclasses or courses. So and we'll rotate this around a little bit. But again, these women are getting further exposure. They'll also come onto our podcast and things like that as well. So
you spoke earlier a bit about authenticity. How do you kind of balance staying authentic to what Sisterhood Collective is all about, but still growing your membership internationally? Is that a challenge?
No, I'll tell you why. Well, maybe, I don't know. I love planning, and my favourite thing is strategy. I love a big whiteboard and a couple of pens, and I'll just sit there for hours and I map out, firstly, all the streams of business that I have and then the operations. And I do everything in 90-day sprints. And I think just on the weekend, actually Sunday, I mapped out my next 12 months and what that looks like and then what Sisterhood looks like and the growth. And then I'm like...
I haven't mapped out my next 12 hours, let alone 12 months. That's...
Yeah, and well, it's not the personal aspect, it's just the business component.
Fair enough.
Because I have goals and I have dreams, and I also just think that, reach for the stars. And if you don't reach it, you've come a lot further than you ever would. So you've got to put the bar high if you want to, go places.
You are a businesswoman at the end of the day. I'd love to know how you kind of balance purpose and profitability in an organization like this. How do you kind of monetize a platform which is basically a social network?
Yes. I think through sponsorships, memberships, is pretty much it, and then service offerings.
And has that been successful for you?
We no and yes. Do you know what I mean? So from a membership perspective, yes, we've got this great reach. I don't think I've done a good job, and the reason is I've pivoted a few times because I've been influenced and I've taken the business down a track where I thought I had to take it, not necessarily where I wanted to take it and where the need was. And so that's where it comes back to, revisiting everything. And so by moving the business across here to the UAE, it was an opportunity to facelift everything. And so like our websites are, actually going through a facelift right now. Our services are going through a facelift right now. And I guess the path, the roadmap on where we're going has just undergone a facelift too. So to get that clarity on where we want to go. And if you keep pivoting, nothing's going to be successful, profitable from a profitable perspective.
And the UAE, particularly Abu Dhabi, is kind of seen as a bit of a hub for entrepreneurs. Is that part of the reason of being here as well? Are you hoping that you can really expand Sisterhood Collective by that kind of injection of cash from people who, obviously align with what you guys do, but also see a gap in the market for an organization like this?
Yeah, I think so. And I also think there's a gap for men. And there's potential opportunities for collaborations, with not only these women entrepreneurs, but there's a massive gap in the men's space. So if anyone's interested in, kind of talking about that a little bit more as well, I think, someone needs to get a grip of all these guys that are needing, this same, very similar space. When we first started, we actually had more men followers than women. And I sat there and thought, hang on a second, we're trying to, our target audience is women over 35, but we're getting men over 35. And literally they were reaching out as well. Loz, love that podcast. Or, oh, this really resonates with us, when I do a workshop. This really resonates with me. I sat down and did the work and got your workbook and did it all. And so then we actually, back then, but 3 years ago, we structured our target audience around the feedback we were getting from men, but we created a female avatar.
Right.
Based on the needs of the man. Isn't that really weird? Yeah. Because it's just a need in general. And And although we talk all about helping women, at the end of the day, we want to reach anybody.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you kind of see yourself as a platform was also helping men kind of understand what a woman 35 plus is kind of going through and trying to, navigate through the life where, a woman has so many different changes at the time?
Initially, I wanted to be an all-inclusive platform, but then what I realised is in order to help the women, they need that safe space, and that, unfortunately, that's to be, we need closed doors to feel safe.
We spoke about this a bit earlier as well, Laurie, and I asked you a bit how you measure success in Sisterhood Collective. Is it numbers? Is that what you're solely looking at, or revenue even as well, or is it the kind of impact that you have on individual women's lives, I guess?
Yeah, it's not about the money. This particular one, as I said, it's my passion project. Of course, it helps get further reach and everything like that. For me, if the sisterhood reaches one person and makes a change, that was always my goal. Now we're on a mission to reach 1 million.
Wow.
And the impact doesn't have to be big. It could be tiny. It could just make someone stop and think for a second. And if that helps somebody, then I find that to be very successful, and that's always been our goal.
What's your plans to get there, and by when do you think you can get there?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't mapped out how to get there in 1 million.
Hang on, you've mapped your next 12 years, so...
I've got some homework to do. How long? Again, I think once you start to get some momentum, and I feel like it's here, I think the UAE is going to give us the momentum to get the further reach. And I have plans to get into other countries and get this, greater reach. I think we'd definitely be there within the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
I certainly hope so.
Amazing. And do you kind of hope that you can take this onwards into not just it being a kind of your baby and a personal project, but actually turning this into what eventually could be a viable business model as well? Is that the plan? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's something I always think about. So how does this legacy continue whether I'm here or not here? Because I think that's important. And, initially when you start a business, people buy from people. So you need a face behind the business. And right now that's kind of me. But as I said earlier, the plan is to help other women rise. So that is what we will do. We'll start to pass the baton on a little bit and make it a face that is all-encompassing the sisterhood. It's all these women that are doing amazing things. And it will be a brand that, hopefully goes around globally and does some, conventions or summits and hosts live events to bring the women together and showcase other women on their journeys that maybe have had really, overcome limiting beliefs or some sort of barrier to get where they are today, that just inspires somebody to go, yes.
And how important is it for you as well to kind of inspire the next generation of women as well, those who are soon will be hitting that 35 mark and upwards? Is that a role that the Sisterhood Collective plays as well?
Yeah. And, yes, down, but also interestingly older. You think the market's about 35 to 45, and that was kind of where we were aiming. We had a lot of 60-year-old women that are still saying things like, oh, I wish I had have done something like you. I wish I had have started a business. I'm like, but you still can.
Yeah.
Because in 20 years, what could you do in 20 years?
A lot. Have a kid.
Learn a language. Move countries. Start a business or 6. And I guess if you stop and just go, what have I done in the last 12 months? And reflect on everything that's just happened. And this is what we don't do. We don't see how far we've come and that we're capable of doing that. And that's, so for these younger, these young pups today, there's definitely space for them because they are the new generation. They bring this new energy to us, and we need to learn from them as well.
Just tell us a bit about Sisterhood Collective. Where can people get all the information and find out more about?
So Sisterhood Collective is all over Instagram. We have YouTube channels. We have www.sisterhoodcollective.com. We have a podcast, Lounging with Laurie.
Amazing. I love that name.
Yes.
Are you in nice sofas on that?
About to.
Okay.
It's a
That would be
facelift.
nice.
It's all about the facelift. The over 35s.
Yeah, of course, of course. Look, Laurie Drummond, thank you so much for your time today on Mira Business FM, talking to us about Sisterhood Collective and your life in general and how you've got to where you are today by empowering women along the way and starting off in the Australian Army, which I love. And I love that you came in your Army greens today
Just for you.
as well. Yeah, thank you so much. This is Mira Business FM. 12:50 is the time. We'll be back after a very short break.